It's time for the third annual Greater West Bloomfield State of the Communities, live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM, as well as lakesfm.com. Your moderator for tonight's State of the Communities is Brooke Allen.
And hello, welcome everybody to the third annual Greater West Bloomfield State of the Communities. I'm Brooke Allen, Midday Anchor on WWJ News Radio 950, coming to you from the studios of Civic Center TV in West Bloomfield. I'll be your moderator for tonight's event, which is also being simulcast live on radio on 89.3 Lakes FM. And tonight, we celebrate and learn more about our four communities and share important information from the leaders of the Township and the Tri-Cities. And for those loyal viewers of Civic Center TV and for those newer members of our audience, I would like to talk for just a moment about the programming you can enjoy on our channels. Coming back in the not-so-distant future will be The Splash, a weekly news magazine program hosted by yours truly that features stories, segments, and interviews about people, events, and also the projects going on in the four communities. And I am very much looking forward to the return of The Splash. And of course, each weekday from 10 a.m. until noon, we bring you the Oakland County Megacast. So tune in as hosts Ronnie Dahl and Tyler Keefe provide you the most up-to-date information on the coronavirus from Oakland County area newsmakers. And you will also hear from health, public safety, education, and business leaders in West Bloomfield, Keego Harbor, Sylvan Lake, Orchard Lake, Bloomfield Township, Birmingham, along with other parts of Oakland County and Metro Detroit. And of course, the Megacast can be heard on 89.3 Lakes FM and lakesfm.com, as well as viewed on Comcast Channel 15, AT&T Channel 99, and online in high definition on civiccentertv.com. Also on civiccentertv.com, you can view all of the past wonderful programs we have produced by clicking the on-demand link. And now I'd like to take talk a little bit about something that has just passed on the calendar, and that was Sunshine Week. It is one of the inspirations for this panel discussion that we bring you here this evening. And Sunshine Week is a national celebration with involvement from communities throughout the country. The goal of Sunshine Week to provide greater access to public information, also foster the relationships between the government and the people it represents, and also to inspire community involvement and government transparency. And we think by the end of tonight's program, you will find that our State of the Communities is a perfect tribute to those ideals. And almost 1 year ago today, the world and the local community rocked by the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. At the time of last year's broadcast, there were only 2 cases in the state of Michigan. As of today, there have now been more than 730,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19 right here in Michigan. And it is in that backdrop that we bring you tonight's virtual presentation of the State of the Communities. And now let's meet our 4 local leaders participating in tonight's program. Joining us tonight, we have the Township Supervisor of West Bloomfield since 2016, Steve Kaplan. Current mayor and council member for the City of Keego Harbor since 2018. Let's welcome Mayor Brian Lample. And council member since 2016 and elected mayor in November of 2020. Say hello to Mayor Ben Clark from the city of Sylvan Lake. And finally, from the city of Orchard Lake Village, let's welcome current council member and former mayor Bruce McIntyre. So touching on the COVID-19 pandemic, Supervisor Kaplan, we are going to kick off the program with you. Could you talk a little bit about the challenges West Bloomfield has faced during the COVID-19 pandemic and how things are looking as we appear to be slowly getting back to normalcy?
Nice to see you again. So glad you're here with us. The township, like any other municipality, has experienced the coronavirus, and we have remained open except for a 6-week period between the middle of March and the middle of May. And during that time, we, like the other municipalities, we have imposed as many conditions as we can to try to stay safe, with plexiglass at the counters, with constant cleaning, with insisting upon the 6-foot rule. And fortunately, out of our 91 employees at Town Hall, only 13 have contracted the COVID-19 virus, and none of them were extremely ill. So we're very pleased about that, and we're all looking forward to the pandemic vanishing and being conquered so we can return to our great lives.
I know we all look forward to that. And, I just want to ask you real quickly, what have been the residents' reaction to all the safety measures you've put in place? I mean, are they for it, against it?
No, they're pleased. They appreciate the fact that local government cares about them and cares about the staff.
Okay, thank you so much. And Brian Lample, I know that Keego Harbor was the recipient of federal grant money under the CARES Act. So can you tell us a little bit about how those funds were allocated to help the city during the pandemic?
Sure. Brooke, thank you for hosting this evening, and thank you to Civic Center TV. This year's been extremely difficult. Fortunately, we've been able to secure about $125,000 in grant money, partially through Oakland County from the CARES Act, a restaurant relief program. So about $50,000 went directly to our restaurants and bars in support of their operations for them to be able to expand outdoor dining, to be able to obtain electrostatic sprayers for disinfecting and getting greenhouses and igloos, propane heaters, and so on and so forth. Many of them have also taken advantage of SBA loans through Oakland County. So that's been good. It's been very unfortunate. It's about $70,000 we've spent to reinforce our efforts within our city buildings, making sure that they're safe for residents, safe for our employees. We've also been able to facilitate obtaining assistance for families in need through Oakland County programs, some local nonprofits. Overall, the bright spot, if you could call it that, is in an otherwise difficult year, was seeing so many of our people in our community really coming together, of course, metaphorically, to help one another. And that's been really interesting and great to see.
And has been interesting because during such a time that none of us have really experienced, and the people helping other families, like you mentioned. And of course, we all know that the need for food has increased as so many people lost their jobs and schools shut down. So it's so important that the community be more involved now than ever.
Yes, when we've been able to step up, and our local nonprofits like the Jacket Club have really stepped in, and so has our city staff has helped to facilitate that with Oakland County. So, that's been really good, if you could say so.
And now let's turn to Ben Clark, Mayor of Sylvan Lake. The City Council actually did something unique to help community events continue during COVID. So, Mayor, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I would tell you that, like, as a community, we really came together and brought socially distant events, and they were very successful. Where a lot of the Parks and Rec events had to be canceled, we kind of pivoted as a community, and I think that improved our city and made us stronger than ever. We had events like the Glow Roll, small outdoor concerts, yoga in the park, a blood drive. There were food trucks. There was an adult field day. Parks and Rec put on a Christmas tree lighting and carol, and they put on the Haunted Trail. And there was just like other countless kinds of like spontaneous and fun events that came up. Obviously, keeping distance and keeping with CDC guidelines, but it was very interesting. So when we saw that, I guess the strength in that, we decided to pass an ordinance to kind of give a path forward to creating events like this in the future. So we don't want to see this end just when COVID-19 improves. We want to continue to enhance and improve these community events.
And that's what's so interesting is that so many things have been put into place because of the pandemic. And now we're hearing, as far as like the igloos for the restaurants and things like that, that they will stay long after the pandemic has ended.
Yeah, I think a lot of people really do like these outdoor style events. I just see people getting outside so much more in our community, walking on the streets. It's been awesome really to see people outside, obviously being responsible, but outside nonetheless, and finding a way to stay healthy through a very difficult time.
And it's what else is so interesting is the whole idea of the mental, we've heard about the mental toll this has taken on pretty much everybody from, young kids to the senior citizens as far as the isolation goes. And so it sounds like those events, right, have kind of kept that isolation factor at bay.
Absolutely. I mean, I know it has for me. Without going outside, I'd have a very difficult time. So it's very important for me to get out, walk, do different things.
Well, thank you so much. And now to Bruce McIntyre. How has Orchard Lake Village and particularly City Hall had to pivot to keep up with the ever-changing aspects of COVID-19? There have been so many pivots that have been done this last year.
Well, as was mentioned, we installed a lot of plastic coverings in City Hall for distancing. For quite a period of time, City Hall was closed, could only enter by appointment. Now, that is no longer the case, but we still require masks, of course. Fortunately, we've been able to maintain all of our services without any interruption. A couple of our restaurants, unfortunately, have closed. I hope we see them reopening again. I want to mention, lest I forget it, that during this last year, although it has nothing to do with COVID, we lost two very important people in our community. Janet Green, who was the longtime city clerk, she had retired. Janet was very beloved in the city. And Jerry Kosminski, within the last couple of weeks, who was a longtime council member going back to the 1990s. So we feel the result of that, even though it's not COVID related.
Thank you, Mayor. And we're so sorry about those losses. Pillars of the community. And, you know, it's been so hard during this pandemic. And as you said, it wasn't COVID related, but still very tough to deal with loss during this time. We are going to now pivot here and switch to housing and development, and an area that is ever changing as our local communities continue to grow and strive. We are going to start off with Brian Lample, Mayor of Keego Harbor. So, Mayor, could you talk about the Tifa District Master Plan Initiative, which includes the redevelopment of the Cass Lake Road Corridor?
Oh, Brian's muted.
We're in the process of developing our master plan for the Tifa district, and that encompasses the Cass Lake Corridor and a little part of Orchard Lake Road. It's the extension of a retail market analysis and residential housing market analysis that we did back in 2019 with the Gibbs Planning Group. And so after seeing the kind of tremendous potential that Keego Harbor had, we decided to commission the Tifa District Master Plan. Residents and community can go to plankeegoharbor.com to see about the process, to see some of the suggestions. There's some renderings. It's really represents the first time that Keego Harbor has really endeavored to utilize and implement placemaking concepts as a economic development tool to help make our city more walkable, activate and engage our common spaces. So it's, while staying true to our community and the uniqueness that we have in our community. So it's an interesting process, and we're about in the middle of it. We're encouraging our residents to really engage with us about what they want to see, but the early results of our survey indicate that our residents would like us to do something on the Cass Lake Road corridor, whether it's minor beautification or doing something more dramatic and making it into a village feel.
So is there any update on the proposed apartment complex, the residents at Cass Lake, and any new businesses on the horizon?
So with the residents at Cass Lake, that's still, that's the area that is where the trailer park area was, or still is, and that's being still transformed. That is still moving forward. They will be headed back to the planning commissions to make some adjustments. So that's still in the process. I think that's still a couple of years out on the horizon, but we're moving the city forward. Utilizing the Tifa District Master Plan as a way to kind of propel the city forward.
So any thoughts on Keego Harbor's taxable value and budget?
So our taxable value in the last 5 years, it's been on an upward trajectory. It's now at about $107 million. It's up from about 85 million 5 years ago. We've all been impacted by the Proposition A and the rollback of the Headley Amendment, but so we've been defunded as a city about $1.7 million over the last 20 years. So, we've been slowly climbing back up, but this is one of those things where we're on a good trajectory forward. I think the Tiffin District Master Plan kind of fits nicely with that, and continuing that momentum forward by attracting businesses and development into our community.
So Mayor Ben Clark, having the nickname the prettiest little city in the state of Michigan, means it is probably not too easy finding a house for sale in Sylvan Lake. So can you tell us a little bit about what the outlook for new development there, both in the residential and commercial sectors?
Sure. So that's absolutely true. It is very difficult to find a house. There's tons of renovation and construction going on. So people are staying in the community. It's very difficult to find new housing, but people are improving their housing. And yeah, there's very little housing stock in Sylvan Lake. So it's a challenge, but.
So any advice for people who are looking for a home in Sylvan Lake?
Oh man, get with one of the popular realtors, I suppose would be what I'd recommend. There's just not a lot of housing stock.
I think is that a good thing or a bad thing in your opinion?
Well, I mean, it's I would say not exactly a great thing. I mean, it's good for the homeowners who want to sell their homes, but it would be, I mean, people need to move into the community, so. It's something that of course we're trying to grow our community. So yeah, it's a challenge.
So Steve Kaplan, here's a question for you. When you drive around West Bloomfield, it's not hard to spot some of the tremendous new residential communities going up, including Town Court Apartments and the Reserve of West Bloomfield. Can you give us any updates on these projects?
Sure. We're considered to be a bedroom community. We don't have an industrial area. We're 96% developed, but we're very pleased about some new developments. Town Court Apartments at 14 Mile and Orchard Lake behind Panera Bread will feature 4 stories and 192 units, and these will be upper scale apartments. A new subdivision is being constructed at Haggerty south of Walnut Lake Road, and it's called Reserve of West Bloomfield, and it will have a clubhouse and perhaps a swimming pool. I might have mentioned 210 homes, and there are 6 or 7 other subdivisions that have been constructed. So we're very pleased about that. We commissioned a housing study, and it was concluded, and the board adopted the conclusions that we do not need any more senior citizen facilities, but we do need residential areas, clusters, apartments, which are geared toward families.
So anything new to share on any new businesses coming to West Bloomfield?
Yes, we might have a surprise for everybody. A national grocery store at 14 Mile at Haggerty. Not at liberty to mention that one, but Suzanne Levine of the Chamber of Commerce, she works very hard to ensure that our businesses remain here, and she tries to attract other businesses. So we've lost businesses here in West Bloomfield, but we've also gained some, and we hope when the pandemic is over, we'll be as strong as ever.
So finally, to Bruce McIntyre of Orchard Lake, you are part of a desirable community surrounded by lakes that doesn't have too much room for further development. But I do know that there have been recent improvements to Orchard Lake City Hall campus. Can you go ahead and share those with us?
Yes, we expect to go to the voters in the fall with a bond issue for expansion of the City Hall itself and removal of our current DPW facility and re-erecting it in the back of the property. We believe at this point the budget's almost final, that we will be able to do this with no increase in taxes. It's been a long time waiting to do this. The building was built in 1987, and particularly for the police, it's no longer a suitable facility.
And what about Orchard Lake's finances? Thoughts on where the city is at regards to its operating millage and the Orchard Lake pension plan and retiree health care cost?
We are down on a downswing on both retiree health care and pension costs. We expect to have that largely behind us in the next few years. The budget, as I said, probably will not call for any change in taxes this year. I believe our taxable value this year bounced up to about $415 million.
Okay, thank you so much. We are now going to move on to the subject of infrastructure. It's so important in Michigan. At the federal and state government levels, there is always talk about the need for improved infrastructure. But of course, the leaders at the local levels of government, probably the ones who hear about it the most from their constituents. So let's start this part of the program off with Sylvan Lake's Ben Clark. And I know that there is a new infrastructure millage proposal passed last November. Mayor Clark, can you share with us what that means for the residents and also the visitors of Sylvan Lake?
Sure. So yes, we passed our infrastructure millage that we were trying to pass last November. And what this does is it moves us off the reliance on a bond and affords us the flexible replacement schedule as we replace aging infrastructure. So, we are currently replacing sections of aging pipes because we've seen water main breaks. We're conducting a sewer study to try to get the sections analyzed and replaced that are needed. And we are analyzing and grading the quality of each road currently because we do need to start replacing some of our surface streets. We will be using these studies to prioritize different sections that need immediate attention.
And Mayor Lample, how about in Keego Harbor? What could residents expect in your city in regards to road improvements in the upcoming year?
Sure. In Keego Harbor, we're primarily when we think of infrastructure as our roads for certain. Our two main roads, Orchard Lake and Cass Lake Road, are serviced by the Road Commission for Oakland County, the RCOC. In about 2 years, they'll be doing a resurfacing of the of Orchard Lake Road. They intend to take a look at what they consider patterns. We've invited them to our next study session in Keego Harbor to be able to talk about what that might look like. So they're still in discussions with that, but they'll be resurfacing that road the next couple of years. Fortunately, about 80% of our roads are in good shape. We have a fairly robust road preservation program. We had allocated this past year about $400,000 to do additional repaving and some work on some of our roads. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we kind of put that on hold, but we anticipate restarting our road preservation program in this coming year. So residents can expect that. What we have is an independent company comes in to look at all of our roads to grade them. And then we bring that to council, and based off of the 3 worst rated roads or so, we go out and we repair those. That's kind of been the trend for the last 8 to 10 years, and that's how we stay on top of our, keeping our roads preserved and keeping them well maintained. DPW, our Department of Public Works, is out there regularly filling potholes, doing crack seal repairs, those kinds of things.
What about drain maintenance?
Well, we have 3 large drains in Keego Harbor. They were put in place in the 1980s. We have, they represent about $4.5 million in infrastructure costs currently. Those are things that we will be looking at in terms of repairs that may be needed in the coming years. So we keep, infrastructure isn't just our roads, it is our drains. We have a car bridge over on Willow Beach that, spans over the Dollar Lake Channel there, and we have to maintain that as well. So we're keeping an eye on all of these, and we're looking forward to what we hope will be helpful as the American Rescue Plan. And what that allocation might look like for our community. It's supposed to be a few $100,000, but we'll keep that as we stay posted and allow us to move forward with infrastructure improvements.
Thank you. Councilman McIntyre, as everyone knows, Orchard Lake Village does have some large thoroughfares in its city limits. Is it the Road Commission of Oakland County who primarily handles the road repairs and resurfacing, or does some of that come out of the actual Orchard Lake budget?
Well, we have, the Road Commission maintains Orchard Lake Road and Commerce, but we still have 2 heavily traveled roads that we have to maintain that are not residential strictly. One is Old Orchard Trail and the other one's Indian Trail. They have houses on them, but they are also thoroughfares. And that's a fairly heavy demand on a small city in addition to all the subdivision streets that we have to maintain.
And to Supervisor Kaplan, the Road Commission of Oakland County, also a valuable asset to the roads in West Bloomfield, correct?
Yes, and Township Board has developed an excellent relationship with the Road Commission, which is important because when a resident calls to complain about a large pothole on his street, the Road Commission usually will respond in 1 to 2 days. And what the Township Board has done is we've expended tri-party funds in connection with the county to resurface various roads like Hiller and Commerce and Pontiac Trail and Willow. And this year, Lock Haven will be resurfaced. And many residents want us to do the same with Greer. So because the Township Board, Brooke, has been conservative in terms of its annual budgets, we do have money to expend if necessary to repair roads that otherwise would be repaired simply by the Road Commission, which has insufficient funds.
Okay, so what about residents who, if they do come across a large pothole, I mean, can they actually reach out to you?
Sure, just call Town Hall, Supervisor's Office, we'll answer, and we'll call the Road Commission. And I'm not a champion for the Road Commission, but I really respect them. And the fact is that they've been very responsive to us, so the taxpayers do benefit.
And that's important. I understand that there are some improvements planned for Lock Haven Road between Cooley Lake and Willow. Can you talk about that?
Yes, that's approximately a 1.6 mile stretch, and that road will be resurfaced. It's called a preservation overlay, and it might last for as long as 6 to 7 years.
Okay, thank you. So we have reached the moment in our program where we are going to let our 4 leaders stand up, get a drink of water for a few minutes. We are going to be joined by a special guest whose work helps to enrich the lives of every citizen from each of our 4 local communities. Cathy Russ is the director for the West Bloomfield Library, and she assumed that position in December of 2020. So welcome, Cathy.
Hi, Brooke. It's so nice to meet you. Thanks for having me here.
Nice to meet you. So as I mentioned, you just came to West Bloomfield a few months ago. Can you start by telling us just a little bit about your background?
Oh, sure. Prior to coming to West Bloomfield, I was the director of the Troy Public Library for 13 and a half years. And I grew up in Troy, so that was my home library. That was very much a labor of love for me. But I was very excited about the opportunity to come to West Bloomfield. And prior to Troy, I had worked I've worked a bunch of places, Baldwin Library, Bloomfield Township. So familiar with the area, familiar with a lot of the people. I have some friends who live in West Bloomfield, so it was nice to come here.
So not like it was brand new to you.
Right.
So since we are still in the midst of the pandemic, and I know that some libraries not yet open to the public, but how about the West Bloomfield Library?
Yes, the West Bloomfield Library is open to the public, and I'm very proud of the fact that it has been open to the public since June. Of course, that was before I came here. But the library staff and the former director felt very strongly that they wanted to make library service available to the communities because people like to browse, and even if you can't be around large groups of people, it is good to just see another human being from time to time. So the library has been open since June. Our hours are abbreviated, but you can come in, you can browse the shelves, you can use the computers. We are asking people to limit their visits to about 45 minutes, but I'm very pleased that we're able to be open and offer the service.
So you mentioned limiting the amount of their visit or the time of their visits. What about the people? I mean, do you actually have to count the people that are in there, or how does that work out for you?
So right now, we are allowed to be at 50% capacity. Prior to that executive order, we were able to be at 30% capacity. It has not been an issue either way. We do have people coming in, but not to the levels that we used to. We do offer curbside pickup, and we also offer pickup at our drive-up window, and both of those services have been very popular. So, however you want to use the library, we've tried to give you a way to do that.
So what about virtual programming? So many people, I mean, we're doing it right now virtually, right? So tell me, has the library offered virtual programming?
Yes. We transitioned to virtual programming fairly quickly by July, and have been able to offer a really great array of virtual programs. And people have responded very positively. We're getting requests for new programs all the time. And I like the virtual programs in that it's a way to allow people to still connect even if they can't be together physically. And also you can do this, maybe not this program, but people can watch in their pajamas and be comfortable and eat popcorn and still have an opportunity to interact with the participants and ask questions of the presenter. So it's been a good way to offer that aspect of library service. I'm glad we were able to continue that.
Oh, I'm in my pajamas. Don't get me wrong. No. So tell us, what is coming up on the library calendar?
So we have I'm very excited about these programs. So for adults, we're offering, we have 3 sessions of our popular cord cutting workshop, and that allows people to learn about if you want to stop cable and start streaming, we can tell you how to do that. And we have a lot of streaming services available to you at the library, so we talk about that as well. We have a database called Creative Bug, and one of our online learning workshops features that, and a couple of our other online learning databases. But Creative Bug is cool. If you're a crafter and you're bored and you're at home and whatever, and you have some string and a hole punch and a deck of cards, you can go in Creative Bug and it'll give you a craft that you can do. So that's pretty cool. For kids, we have financial literacy for preschoolers coming up. And that's introducing them to concepts about money and even planting that seed now about why it's important to save. So some really interesting, hopefully, and I think practical things that people can use.
Can we talk a minute, obviously this year the kids have not been in school for the most part. And, we always talk about the summer slide, right, as far as reading. I have 9-year-old twins, so, I know that I'm right there with everyone else kind of worried about this. And how important is it to keep young readers, even teenagers, right there in the library or at least in a book?
Oh, it's so important. It's so important because it does stop the slide. And, I always say reading is one thing that will never hurt you. It increases vocabulary, comprehension, context. It helps you understand the world around you. It helps you empathize if you read books about people from other cultures or who have had different experiences than those that you have had, and it promotes empathy. So to that end, we just completed our first ever winter reading program to keep kids reading. We had 111 kids sign up, which is, I think, great for a first time out. And we are planning to have our summer reading program again, virtually, but we hope to offer some outdoor programs to go with that.
Okay, so as far as when will those details be released?
We have our summer newsletter coming up, and that'll be published at the end of May.
Okay, so being that you are new to the West Bloomfield Library, what are some of the things that separate it from the other libraries you've been at?
That's a really good question. Well, so part of the reason why I wanted to come to West Bloomfield is because I have always admired the library, the staff, the former director. They definitely have a philosophy of continuous improvement. They're always looking to make things better. And, they won the National Medal, which is the highest honor for libraries in 2010. And instead of just saying, we won the National Medal, okay, we're done, rest on our laurels, they always get better. And I wanted to be part of that. And so now that I'm here, I've learned how they do that. And it's a different approach than many libraries take. Every library is going to tell you they want to be the best. Mm-hmm. But what we do here is based on feedback from the community, trends in libraries, creative ideas from the staff. Everybody brainstorms, throws everything together, and we look and say, okay, what can we do for the coming year? What will our budget allow? What makes sense? And they put it in writing. And it's basically a roadmap that we list out. This is what we're going to do for the next year. Community, we pledge that we're going to work on these projects, and it helps to keep the building maintained. It helps to keep our collections fresh, our programming fresh and dynamic, every aspect of library service. And then that's approved by the library board. So everybody takes ownership, everybody's involved. And it's sort of like you put your money where your mouth is. And then at the end of the year, we review that document and say, okay, this is what we accomplished. This is what we didn't accomplish, but here's why. What do we want to carry over? What does it make sense to not do? And I just think it keeps the momentum going, and it's such a dynamic approach. And I really like that.
And it's also accountability, right?
Yes, very much so.
Okay, so
I like that too.
I have one more question for you before I let you go. Have you read any good books lately?
As a matter of fact, I have. This is the book that I'm talking about all over town. I loved this book so much. It's called The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I have not, I'm sorry.
It is for senior citizens. And they're in their retirement community, a murder is committed. And these 4 senior citizens all have some sort of aspect in their background of either psychology or crime management. And so they set out to solve these murders, and it is just so funny. It's really, really funny. It's very well written. A sequel is coming out in September. Steven Spielberg has optioned the movie. And as a friend of mine described it, he said it was like, during the COVID, the dark days of the winter. Right. He said it was like the sun peeking out from behind the clouds. So if you need a laugh and a good story, The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And one more question as far as what do you recommend kids read these days? Any top of mind?
I think there are so many great books out there for kids. And I think one of the things that I'm pleased to see is there's a lot of diverse voices these days for kids. So to that, I'll be honest with you, I'm not as up on children's literature as I am on adult literature, but we have a ton of reading lists. So if you have kids and you want to know what to read for kids, please call us, stop by, check out our website, and we will help you find out that information.
Okay, thank you so much, Cathy. It has been a pleasure to speak to you in person, kind of, right? And we thank you for spending part of your evening with us and telling us about the West Bloomfield Public Library. And thank you for letting us get to know you.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, take care. Thank you so much. That is Cathy Russ, Director of the West Bloomfield Public Library. And we are going to turn to the issue of public safety and leadership. So back to our 4 local leaders, we are going to dig into that very topic of public safety and leadership. And Supervisor Kaplan, anyone who is driven by Fire Station 1 on Orchard Lake Road on Fridays recently has seen the tremendous transition of that station into a COVID-19 vaccination clinic. So can you tell us about the great work being done there?
Sure, and most of the credit belongs to Greg Flynn, Chief Greg Flynn, and his staff. But we contacted Oakland County, and although we're not allowed to be the source of vaccines, we don't schedule vaccinations, but we did we offered our location, and Oakland County accepted, so we thank Dave Coulter, the executive, and his staff. But this enables those in West Bloomfield who are able to schedule a vaccine appointment to have the vaccine provided in West Bloomfield. And so we're very pleased by that opportunity we're providing to the public.
And I've also heard about some of the possible renovations to the West Bloomfield Police Headquarters. Can you tell us about those?
Yes, our West Bloomfield Police Department, the current building, opened in 1992. It was 28 years old. And back then we had perhaps 80 staff members. Now we have 82 police officers plus about 30 supplemental staff. And Township Board has met, but has not reached a determination. But I think the board will allocate between $3 and $4 million or $3 million to $4.2 million for renovation and expansion. Also, we've devoted $1.2 million for repairs of the police department. So we realize the Township Board is just vigilant in being conservative and spending money and allocating money, but to maintaining the infrastructure.
And what about the Town Hall emergency access egress?
Yes.
Aren't you glad I asked that?
Yes, that'll be constructed this summer. As you know, Brooke, you visited our campus. We only have one entrance, one egress, and one ingress at Walnut Lake Road. So if there is a major accident there, or even worse, barricaded gunmen, visitors to Town Hall as well as staff need to have an opportunity to leave the campus, and so that'll be at the southeast end of the campus of Savoy Trail. So we're excited about that sort of pathway opening up to the public.
Wonderful. Thank you. And in Keego Harbor, Mayor Lampel, there was a millage passed in 2017 to help fund your police department. Can you talk about that money and how it's being spent to ensure the safety of your residents?
Sure. In 2017, we passed a millage. It's about 3.7177 mils. That effectively allowed us to offset some of the increasing costs to having our own police force, and to be able to ensure that we could provide a high level of public safety to our residents and business owners that they've come to expect. we've been able to utilize that money for extra training, to be able to provide them with the appropriate equipment. We have aging vehicles that were approaching end of life. We had a few vehicles that were almost a decade in service. And it's important that the officers have a reliable and safe vehicle so that they can go on calls and respond to our residents. And so we were able to replace 3 vehicles over this past year. Keeping our community safe is obviously a top priority, and this allows us to do that. Under Chief Fitzgerald's leadership and direction, he employs a community-oriented policing strategy, which I think our community really appreciates. That's a strategy where the officers get to know the members of our community, and the members of our community get to know the officers, and they work together to keep the city safe. And I think it's been a good strategy.
Can you talk about the emergency response rates?
Sure, I can talk a little bit about that. Our emergency response rates for this past year, we've had 2,542 dispatched incidences in 2020 between the police, fire, and EMS. Our EMS and fire get onto the scene in less than 3 minutes. Our police are around 4 minutes. It would be even less, but we've had some boater assistance calls and boat incidences that are included in that, and those are a much longer response time. There were about 19 of those incidences over the last year, so that's drives that rate up a little bit. While I'm on the topic of EMS and fire, I want to say that, we're extremely appreciative of the level of service that we have from our Tri-City Fire and EMS through our contract with West Bloomfield. So a big thank you to them and Chief Flynn and all the men and women under his command for their continued support of our community. We appreciate it.
And Bruce McIntyre, to you, can you talk about the role your police and the Tri-City Fire Department has played during this pandemic for the citizens of Orchard Lake?
Well, let me mention first that we've had a very stable department. There's been very little change in it in terms of personnel. We have 8 full-time officers, including the chief, plus part-timers. And in addition, we through a special assessment district on the lakefront owners, we also maintain marine patrols on Orchard Lake. Now, Chief Joe George has been there for 10 years. He just notified us within the last 30 days that he will be retiring. And so that will be the first major change in the department. We're just starting the search process on that. And as I mentioned before, we need a major change in the building because there are some safety issues with the department in the space that it was allotted back when the building was built in 1987. We want to correct that.
And anything else you'd like to add about the Orchard Lake Village law enforcement?
No, I'm just very happy that we have the service we do, and we also share the same services through West Bloomfield that have been very beneficial to us.
Thank you. And finally, Mayor Clark, since last year's State of the Communities event, Sylvan Lake has transitioned from John Martin as police chief to a new chief. Can you tell us about that transition?
This is correct. So we have a new police chief, Brian Bassett. He's been wonderful. Him and John have been working together closely to secure grants for restaurants affected by COVID-19, and they also secured a grant to purchase and install new touchless appliances in public spaces. And I'd really just like to thank John Martin for doing such a great job as police chief for the past 7 years. He was put in a very difficult situation, and he adapted very well. It is taking on that role really saved the city hundreds of thousands of dollars and dramatically improved our image and quality of the Sylvan Lake Police Department.
Thank you so much. And that brings us to the final segment of tonight's program, where we are going to discuss some specific community programs and services that each locale sets them apart from the other. So we are going to kick off this section with Mayor Lample from Keego Harbor. And one of the great parts of your city is its Parks and Recreation Department. Can you share with us what's on the horizon as far as park improvements and all the wonderful events going on that Keego Harbor puts on every year?
Sure. Keego Harbor is a fairly small city. We are just over a half a square mile, but we're fortunate to have 9 parks. That includes 4 pocket parks and 2 public swim sites. These are extremely meaningful to our residents, and at the heart of that is our Parks and Rec Commission. Many of our city events are put on by them or in conjunction with local nonprofits. And before COVID hit, they were actually looking at reimagining our very popular skate night into a more family-friendly event. So we're looking forward to them, taking a new look at what kind of events that they can do going forward. But they've been keeping busy, continuing to actively seek ways to further improve our parks through various grant opportunities. The city is the recipient of community development block grant money that we're using to make Rose Sorter Park ADA compliant. That includes a ramp to the gazebo, paving the walkways around the park to make it more accessible.
Okay, and Bruce McIntyre, just like the library services, the entire area, Orchard Lake is home to the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society, which of course honors the history of the entire area. Can you tell us about the great work they do there?
Yes, we provide the building, which actually was the former city hall, and that's our major contribution to it. But the society itself, of which I'm a member, does great historical work. I'm hoping that they will be able to resume the Apple Island tours. I don't know yet how that looks for this year, because they normally do them in May. Apple Island is a jewel. If you haven't been there, you need to visit. But the Historical Society is a gem. I hope you visit it.
Okay, so I have a question. We all love the St. Mary's Polish Fair. And do you think it's going to happen this year or not until next year?
I have not heard the decision on this. If it was to happen, I'm sure that would be under different circumstances. It was considered to be the largest fair in the state. And I'm sure that under the current COVID circumstances, it probably could not operate that way, but that decision is still pending.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned it earlier. We were all saddened by the loss of a woman who was a large part in the recent history of Orchard Lake Village, former city clerk Janet Green. And for those who did not have the privilege of knowing her, tell us about Janet.
Well, Janet started working, I think, when she was age 16 in the city hall. And she was there for somewhere between 35 and 40 years. Unfortunately, after she retired, she became ill and we lost her. But Janet was unbelievable. I don't think there was anybody in the city that she didn't know by their first name. She knew everything, all the history, all the scandal, everything you wanted to know.
So can you tell us, will there be a City Hall memorial dedication for her?
We already had that. We did it during the winter.
Okay, and going to Mayor Clark, one of the great things about Sylvan Lake, of course, is its parks. Can you share with us some of the work you're doing over there to continue to give your residents a great place to enjoy the beauty of Sylvan Lake?
Sure. So one of the sticking points of our parks for the past few years has been geese. We've had a lot of geese mess around the parks due to basically some circumstances. Last year, we weren't able to do a goose roundup due to COVID. The year prior, the Sylvan Lake Otter Association was unable to get, I think it was DNR permission to do it. So that usually would kind of mitigate the problem. It seems like we are going to have a goose roundup this year, which is good. That should help a lot. But we also purchased a waste collection tool to pick up the geese waste, but also anything really in the parks. As I talked about, I really started it saying how much we've been doing these outdoor events, and I think it will really improve those events to have a very clean surface on the ground. So that's something I'm very excited about. I know it might sound silly, but it's one of those things that will dramatically improve our parks.
Okay, so the 100th anniversary as a village, tell us about that.
Sure. So we are a city now, and I think we'll be 75 next year, but we incorporated as a village 100 years ago this year. So we are going to have a celebration late summer, we think. at the community center, and it will be hopefully something that resembles the traditional celebrations we've had in the past.
Okay, thank you so much. And finally, to Supervisor Kaplan, you love recycling. It has always been a huge part of West Bloomfield's recent history. So can you tell us about some of the events you have coming up in 2021 to continue with that tradition?
This year we're expanding at no additional cost to the public. We're having 3 separate shredding days, and shredding only begin. The first one is April 17th. And then we are having 2 HHW, Household Hazardous Waste Days, without shredding. And the first one is May 1, and the second one is at the end of September. Keego Harbor, Orchard Lake, and Orchard Lake residents join in. They can attend, and we welcome them. They are great communities. I do want to mention that our Parks Commission has a separate form of government led by its own board. Robert Brooks is the chairperson, and Jennifer Tucker is the director. But that's just a marvelous agency with all the programs they provide. And there's a splash pad opening. It's called Lily Pad Springs on Farmington Road, just north of Maple, probably be open later this year, and that's going to be a jewel for our community, and it'll be great fun for our youngsters.
So that is still a go?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. It's funny you mentioned the recycling events. It always backs up traffic so badly because so many people take part in those events.
And we're attempting to decrease the waiting time by way of separating the shredding days from the regular HHW days.
Okay, thank you so much. And, of course, you mentioned the complimentary 64-gallon jugs.
Yes.
What are those?
Well, they're recycling containers. They're olive green in color with a lid and wheels, and all residents are entitled to a free container. They just need to call Town Hall, but that's courtesy of GFL, our waste hauling company.
Okay, so if they need one, they can just call.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. With that, we have reached the end of the 2021 State of the Communities event. I would really just like to give each leader a moment to talk about anything that maybe we didn't touch on this evening, or say any closing remarks or thank you. We are going to start off with Mayor Lampel from Keego Harbor.
Thank you, Brooke. As I mentioned, this year really has posed its challenges for many of us, but what I'm extremely thankful for is how our city council, residents, businesses, volunteers, our city employees, and our police officers, all who have risen to those challenges, have really come together in support of our community. I'd also like to thank our surrounding communities of Sylvan Lake, Orchard Lake, and West Bloomfield for their assistance of the year. And of course, Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, our state representative Brenda Carter, Oakland County, and County Executive Dave Coulter for their continued support. So on behalf of our city, just a big thank you for making our community such a great place.
Okay, thank you so much. And now to Supervisor Kaplan from West Bloomfield.
Thank you, Brooke. It's an honor to be part of local government. And I should say that our township board, and I know I'm biased because they're all friends, but they are stupendous. And the voters re-elected all 7 board members. So that tells you something. It's very unusual. But we're proud to have a part in the community, and we think we have one of the best communities in the state. We love collaborating with Keego Harbor and Sylvan Lake and Orchard Lake, and we're hoping for a wonderful year.
Okay, thank you so much. And now we turn to Bruce McIntyre from Orchard Lake Village.
Well, one of the things that I miss is that we haven't been together for so long. We've been doing Zoom meetings of city council for a year now, and it works well when you're doing things like this, but you lose the human touch of being together with your friends and colleagues. So I'm hoping that we're able to resume that before too long.
Okay, thank you so much. And of course, finally, Mayor Ben Clark of Sylvan Lake.
Well, it's always hard to be last because I'm going to echo all the same sentiments that it's great working with the communities around us. A few things that I maybe missed is that I wanted to welcome 2 of our new council members, Sally Siegel and Jim Cowper, and also like to thank Aaron Lorenz and Luke Cassar for their tireless devotion and work for the city of Sylvan Lake. Our greatest asset is the community we foster. We have hardworking neighbors who participate and work together to make Sylvan Lake the prettiest little city in Michigan.
Okay, thank you so much. And with that, we want to say thank you for joining us, with everyone watching live on Civic Center TV, those listening on 89.3 Lakes FM, and of course, those watching on demand on civiccentertv.com. This has been the 3rd annual Greater West Bloomfield State of the Communities. For Civic Center TV, I'm Brooke Allen. Nice to be back. Good night.